There's a quiet shift happening among older men today, one so subtle that, unless you've lived long enough to feel it yourself, you might miss it completely. It shows up in small ways at first. A man who once chased connection now enjoys taking his time. A man who used to tolerate emotional highs and lows now declines anything that feels turbulent. A man who once believed companionship was essential begins to recognize the deep comfort of his own company. If you look closely, you'll notice something else. They're not bitter, not angry, not giving up on women. They are simply awakening to a truth they didn't have the courage, language, or awareness to understand in their younger years. A truth that, once seen, cannot be unseen. Many senior men reach a point where they stop and ask themselves a quiet but powerful question. What kind of life do I want for the years I have left? That question alone rearranges everything. It softens the need to impress. It dissolves the urgency to pursue. It shifts the focus away from being chosen and toward choosing peace. And the moment a man discovers how deeply restful life can be, without conflict, without performance, without emotional unpredictability, he begins protecting that peace with a level of conviction he didn't have in his 30s, 40s, or even 50s. This isn't withdrawal, it's awakening. This isn't disinterest, it's clarity. And for many older men, it becomes the turning point where dating, relationships, and emotional labor are no longer approached out of habit or expectation, but out of intention. 1. The quiet comfort of a drama-free life. One of the biggest reasons older men step back from dating is the discovery of a peace they never realized they were missing. Peace becomes its own form of companionship. It's the quiet morning routine that doesn't begin with tension. It's the stillness of a home where nothing feels unpredictable. It's the deep exhale that comes from not having to manage someone else's moods or hidden expectations. Over time, a man notices that life feels calmer, not because he avoids relationships, but because he avoids relationships that cost him his stability, and that calm becomes priceless. 2. The experience of being unseen. Throughout life, many men are conditioned to be the steady one, the reliable one, the one who quietly absorbs stress while keeping everything functioning. And because they perform this role so well, their efforts often fade into the background. Their strength becomes assumed. Their consistency becomes invisible. Their emotional needs become secondary. By the time they reach their later years, many men realize they've spent decades being dependable, yet rarely being deeply understood. Not unloved, just unseen. And instead of pleading for recognition, older men step back into themselves. They retreat into environments where they feel valued without having to ask. 3. Recognizing the difference between peace and chaos. When men are young, they often confuse intensity for connection. They tolerate red flags because they think love requires endurance. They stay in emotionally uneven dynamics because they believe commitment means absorbing discomfort. But with age comes a sharper lens. Older men see tension for what it is, a preview of emotional storms that will only grow heavier over time. They understand that a relationship built on excitement, but lacking respect, eventually becomes exhausting. And when they sense that imbalance, they disconnect internally long before the other person realizes something has shifted. 4. Modern dating feels like a world they never designed. The dating landscape today comes with new expectations, some spoken, others implied. Many men notice. Effort is often unequal. Emotional performance is expected. Their steadiness is taken for granted. Appreciation is less common than critique. And with age comes the strength to say, if the effort isn't mutual, I'm not participating. It's not avoidance, it's discernment. 5. Solitude becomes a source of strength. Contrary to the stereotype, older men are not terrified of being alone. In fact, many discover that solitude is deeply nourishing. They enjoy the quiet structure of their own days. They find comfort in rituals that bring peace. They learn that stillness is not emptiness, it is restoration. Once solitude becomes a sanctuary rather than a burden, a man becomes incredibly selective about who he allows into that sanctuary. 6. Emotional self-sufficiency changes the equation. As men age, their emotional world shifts inward. They become grounded by routines, hobbies, spiritual practices, morning reflections, and simple activities that settle the nervous system. They learn to calm themselves without needing emotional validation from someone else. And when emotional independence rises, tolerance for emotional chaos disappears. A man who can soothe himself no longer entertains relationships that unsettle him. 7. They won't be someone's project. Older men are not interested in being reshaped or improved. After decades of experiences, good and bad, they know exactly who they are. They have weathered enough storms to develop a strong internal compass. They want companionship, not correction. Understanding, not management. Connection, not critique. The moment a dynamic feels like a performance evaluation, they quietly pull away. 8. The shortness of life reorders everything. By the time someone reaches their 60s or 70s, life has delivered lessons that leave lasting marks. They've lost people. They've lost time they can never get back. They've lost opportunities that once felt infinite. These losses reshape priorities. Arguments become meaningless. Drama becomes intolerable. Proving oneself becomes a waste of precious time. Older men choose peace because they finally understand how little of it they experienced in their earlier years. 9. Financial boundaries become clear. After decades of building stability, men in later life become protective of their finances, not out of stinginess, but out of wisdom. Love is welcomed. Dependency is not. If affection feels transactional or interest feels conditional, older men emotionally withdraw before things progress. They've worked too long to put their future at risk. 10. Self-respect changes how they love. The greatest transformation in a senior man's life often comes from learning self-respect. They finally honor their own boundaries. They choose environments that feel safe. They walk away from what disrupts their calm. They stop overextending themselves to earn affection. And once a man chooses self-respect, he stops chasing what doesn't feel mutual. He stops arguing to be understood. He stops returning to where peace cannot exist. Do senior men truly stop caring about women? No, they don't stop caring about women. They stop caring about emotional volatility, disrespect, one-sided effort, entitlement, roles that drain them, relationships that feel like labor instead of partnership. What they truly want is simple: warmth, kindness, mutual effort, respect, emotional steadiness, a connection that adds to their life instead of complicating it. Because the real truth is this: older men aren't retreating from love. They're retreating from anything that threatens their peace. And once a man reaches the age where peace becomes non-negotiable, he does not chase, he does not argue, and he does not return to where he was diminished. He simply moves forward, quietly, steadily, and with a clarity that feels like freedom.